Hello again, everybody, and welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips joined by Scott Hood for a Gamecock baseball report today. The Gamecocks getting ready for this Thursday, Friday, Saturday series at Ole Miss. And, Scott, it's a huge series on the national level. Both these teams are ranked as high as in the top 10 in one of the major polls that are out this week. So we got an early season big-time clash in the SEC. We expect this in the Southeastern Conference, and the Gamecocks have got their hands full this week against a very good Ole Miss team that's coming in 20-2, same record as South Carolina.
Yeah, Emerson, I wrote a couple weeks ago that I thought that the first 3 weekends for South Carolina were going to be critical toward their any type of success they have in 2016. They passed the test the first weekend, sweeping Arkansas. And now you have Ole Miss and Vanderbilt here back-to-back on the road, two of the top 10 teams in the country. Both have very, very strong pitching staffs, hostile ballparks. So, in my opinion, this is going to be two great weekends of college baseball coming up here for the Gamecocks. It's going to be very challenging for Chad Holbrook's team. But also, if they can play the way they played against Arkansas at home, then I think they have a shot. So, this is a series that I've had circled on the calendar for a while. This is an old-time classic SEC baseball battle. Both these teams have been very good for a long period of time. Both teams feature dominant pitching. I think pitching matchup between Clark Schmidt of South Carolina and Brady Bramlett of Ole Miss is going to be one of the best in the SEC all season long. I mean, if there's one game you watch in this series or listen to on the radio, listen to Thursday night's game. That's going to be an absolute classic pitching matchup.
Right, Ole Miss comes in hot. They're 20-2, and that equals the best start in the history of their program. And the Gamecocks are also 20-2. Ole Miss 2-1 in the conference. They took 2 of 3 from Tennessee last weekend, dropped game 1, but came back to win the last 2 games. And South Carolina swept the nationally ranked Arkansas team. So the schedule couldn't be much more difficult for the Gamecocks to open the year, and it was tremendous for the Gamecocks to get off to a 3-0 start against an Arkansas club that is ranked in the top 25 in the country, and the Gamecocks are every bit as hot as Ole Miss going to Oxford tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly the Gamecocks right now are clicking on all cylinders offensively, in my opinion. The middle of the lineup with John Jones and Alex Sestino and Dom Thompson-Williams. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better 3, 4, 5 hitters in the SEC right now. And Gene Cohen's doing a very good job at leadoff. You got freshman L.T. Tolbert batting second, doing a great job there too, and playing first base. So right now, Chad Holbrook, I think people were looking for improvement from the Gamecocks this season, expecting it, and certainly that's what we've seen so far. So, yeah, I mean, I believe that if they can win. If they can even just split these next 6 games against Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, that means they'll be 6-3 after the first 3 weekends, which is probably the most challenging stretch of the conference schedule. And then after that, they have Tennessee at home, then at Georgia, and home against Missouri, which is three teams that are probably in the bottom half of the league this year in terms of what the preseason projections were. So they've got a chance to set themselves up for a great season, in my opinion, if they can take care of business here the next 2 weekends against Ole Miss. And I think you have to look at both series together. I don't think you can. Okay, I know coaches want to think one game at a time, but in my opinion, baseball, you always have to look at the big picture because the season's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think if you look at the big picture, I think you look at these next 2 series together, which is what you have to do. Then I think if they can split. Because obviously baseball, you're not going to win every game, especially when you play teams like Ole Miss and Vanderbilt in their home ballpark. So, if they can be 6-3 after these first 3 weekends, then I think in my opinion, it's off to the races for the Gamecocks. I think they set themselves up for a huge season.
Yeah, couldn't ask for a much better start than that. So it's at Ole Miss this weekend, at Vandy next weekend. Vanderbilt, by the way, has played for the national championship each of the last 2 years. They beat Virginia 2 years ago for the title, and then they lost to Virginia in the College World Series final last year. So Vanderbilt, one of the premier programs in the country right now, obviously. So let's talk a little bit more about Ole Miss here, Scott. And you talked about the lineup for South Carolina. And your piece, the preview of the Ole Miss series, says that there may not be a hotter hitter in the country right now than Gamecock catcher John Jones, reigning SEC Player of the Week. He's just been knocking the cover off the baseball.
Absolutely, man. He's certainly been a revelation, I think, for the Gamecocks. Exactly what the Gamecocks needed. If you go back to last year, Emerson, you remember, the Gamecocks' offensive attack was feeble at times last year, and they got virtually no production from the catching position offensively, and Alex Sestino struggled at times at DH. Even Chad Holbrook admitted that he got overwhelmed at times, and even Alex has said that I think the quality of SEC pitching, I think, caught him off guard in terms of how difficult it was to hit. So I think Alex has grown up, and I think John Jones has come in and really been the perfect guy, number 3 hitter in that lineup, the way he's going right now. So he's definitely between the offensive production from the catcher and DH spots has risen significantly over last season, and that's one of the things right now that's fueling the Gamecock offense.
All right, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series at Ole Miss. 7:30 first pitch Thursday, 7:30 Friday, and 3 p.m. Saturday. Scott Hood joining us to talk Gamecock baseball here as the Gamecocks are headed to Ole Miss to take on the Rebels in a big 3-game series. Ole Miss ranked as high as number 6 in the country, and the Gamecocks currently ranked as high as number 10. So huge series here. Scott, let's talk about the starting pitching matchups. You mentioned in your piece on Gamecock Central this week that Ole Miss will start 3 power pitchers, and the Gamecocks are relatively young with the 3 starters this weekend. Clark Schmidt versus Brady Bramlett tonight in Game 1, and this is a marquee matchup in the SEC. Talk about those two.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think you're talking about with Schmidt and Bramlett, you're talking about probably 2 of the top 5 pitchers in the SEC right now based on their numbers. They put together some impressive numbers. I think Bramlett leads. Look, read the Ole Miss notes. Bramlett leads the SEC with 19 strikeouts looking, which means he's got pretty good stuff. And of course, we've all seen what Clark Schmidt has done the first 5 weekends. So, in fact, I think Schmidt's one of the only 2 or 3 pitchers in the SEC with 5 wins right now on his record. So he's sort of been very, very impressive so far. So, and Bramlett's a guy that's probably going to be, drafted pretty high. In fact, both these pitchers are probably going to be drafted pretty high. I imagine there's probably going to be a lot of scouts on hand for this game tonight between Schmidt and Bramlett because you're talking some top shelf SEC pitching. And then, as I mentioned, both these programs have been known for their quality of pitching over the years. They both have put a number of major league pitchers into the big leagues. So it's going to be a great matchup. I certainly expect tonight's game to be a low scoring, hard fought game, probably a 3-2, 4-3 type of game where every play is going to be critically important. Where one miscue can mean the difference between victory and defeat. That's just the way it is when you have such a quality pitching matchup as we have tonight between Schmidt and Bramlett.
All right, very good. And then in games 2 and 3, Scott, the Gamecocks will start a couple of freshmen, and it really feels like this is going to be the first big test of the year. Arkansas obviously provided a test, but the Gamecocks have been very strong at home, and these young freshmen are more comfortable, obviously, at Carolina Stadium, and it will be a hostile environment for them at Ole Miss this weekend with Braden Webb getting the start in Game 2 and Adam Hill starting Game 3 for South Carolina.
Yeah, in my opinion, both those pitchers have done very well so far this year, obviously. But really, I think both these pitchers face huge tests this weekend with their first SEC starts on the road in hostile environments, as you mentioned. So we'll see how they do. I think, Braden Webb, obviously, I think it's a guy from Oklahoma that has come in. Remember, he missed a year last year, but he's come back. He's rebounded nicely and done a very nice job. And, of course, Adam Hill is a kid that started the season out as a weeknight starter, but did so well that Chad Holbrook really had no choice but to put him in the weekend rotation. So, and he's done very well too. So, obviously, yeah, I mean, throwing freshman pitchers, throwing them on the road in the SEC, that's a tough deal. But obviously, as Chad Holbrook said recently, these 2 guys are 2 of our best pitchers So we're going to throw them out there on the mound and see what they do. But again, it definitely is a whole new world going on the road in the SEC, regardless of the sport, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, softball, women's basketball, any sport you talk about. Going on the road in the SEC is very, very difficult because every team in this league, the passion from the players, the coaches, and the fans is there, and every team in this league defends their home turf. And you know that Ole Miss is going to come ready to play, playing at home. So it will be interesting to see how Webb and Hill do this weekend. If then both these guys can pass the test, then again, that'll be a feather in their cap moving forward.
Yeah, real test for these freshman Gamecock starting pitchers, Braden Webb and Adam Hill, this weekend, and a marquee pitching matchup in Thursday night's Game 1 between Clark Schmidt from South Carolina and Brady Bramlett from Ole Miss. So, huge series. We're very early in the SEC season, just the second week of conference play, but a big national series between the Gamecocks and the Rebels. Scott Hood joining us for a full Gamecock baseball report, and you can get greater detail coverage on this South Carolina-Ole Miss series on GamecockCentral.com. Scott's got a terrific preview of the series on the site right now. Scott, we appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right, Scott Hood with me, Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for joining us for Gamecock Baseball Talk.